Hello, everyone. I'm Joe Conrad, founder and CEO of Cactus, an ad agency that I started in 1990 as a purpose driven firm that was really focused on growing brands that help people thrive. And for the past 35 years, we have really partnered with foundations, nonprofits, organizations, and brands that are making the world a better place through the products and services that they put out into the world. So, we have done a series every May for Mental Health Awareness Month for the last several years, where we get together with brand leaders in the space who are doing really innovative, game changing work. And I'm delighted today to be joined by Baxter Sanders, Senior Director of Brand Marketing at Talkspace. Baxter, thank you for being with us.
Of course, happy to be here.
Cactus is a very atypical agency in as much as mental health is a really important issue to our firm. Live and breathe 12 months out of the year, but in the month of May, we like to celebrate it by really talking to leaders in the space that are doing innovative work. We've done our own part to really help fight the stigma of mental health, especially around men seeking help with a campaign that we did called Man Therapy that we launched in 2012. And I like to think that we've really been part of that tipping point that's really pushing towards normalizing mental health and really, champion the mantra that therapy isn't just for some people; it's for everybody, right?
Yep.
And I think when we take that approach, that mental health is really something we should all think about. We all need to look in the mirror and think about where we are on that scale of mental health and well-being. And I think when you take that approach, the stigma just melts away because it's something that we all have in common. Talkspace also has a very clear mission to destigmatize mental health. And so, from your perspective as head of brand, what are some of the most effective strategies Talkspace has employed to break down these societal barriers?
Yeah, I would say a couple things. So the first one being partnering with Michael Phelps and making him our brand ambassador. If you think about Michael Phelps, most decorated Olympian, really famous athlete, I think that people sort of see him and I think just make some assumptions about his life should be great. And I think people do that with famous people in general, right? Famous athletes, famous musicians, famous actors. But I think partnering with him and having him authentically tell his story about what was happening in his life, how he was sort of struggling with his mental health, and how therapy really helped him navigate that, I think really helped move the mental health conversation forward because I think that people probably saw that, were surprised that he was struggling, and maybe, sort of took stock of where they were at to say, maybe I shouldn't feel shameful about struggling with mental health, or maybe I should feel less shame about needing to see a therapist. So I think that partnership has done wonders for the destigmatization of mental health. I would say the second thing is really a strategy that we've been executing the past couple of years, which is putting the voices and faces of Talkspace members at the forefront of our brand. And that evolution was really to match what was happening on the business side of Talkspace. We have since transitioned to being insurance based. So we accept most major insurances. Our average copay is about $15, and most of our members actually will pay $0 through insurance. And so that means a lot more people have access. And so we really want the look and feel of the brand to match that. A lot of the photography you see on our website is Talkspace members. A lot of the sort of testimonial video content you see is Talkspace members, with the hope that when somebody is, trying to figure out if they want to see a therapist, essentially evaluating our services, they may see somebody that looks like them, or they may hear a story from a Talkspace member that really resonates with them. And we've seen really great success from an engagement perspective, from a member acquisition perspective as well. And I would also say one of the highlights of my job is being the person behind that camera, really sitting with our Talkspace members, interviewing them, really talking through their therapy journey, sort of what was happening with their life, what brought them to want to see a therapist, what brought them to Talkspace, and how our services are really positively impacting their lives. Really, really, truly is a highlight. And we want to continue to be able to tell those stories.
So, prior to the pandemic, I think a lot more people were seeking help for mental health and counseling, and Talkspace entered the market at a really great time. But with the advent of COVID and people being isolated, we saw spikes in loneliness, depression, anxiety, a lot more people seeking help, and digital online therapy and digital cognitive behavioral therapy tools really have helped. But since we've passed through the COVID window, what have you seen as far as like the numbers of people seeking help, and what have you noticed as far as those trends?
I would say, obviously, the pandemic was like a perfect storm in terms of, people seeking out help and that needing to be like in a digital space.
Right.
I would say, for us, the benefits that brought people to Talkspace during the pandemic still remain to be the core benefits of our service today. And so we're super focused on consistently messaging what our core benefits are. So if I sort of ran through the list, like the biggest one is convenience. People used our services during the pandemic. They could have therapy. There were a lot of people struggling, a lot of people in crisis, rightfully so, that didn't need to leave their house to have that therapy session. And so
Right.
they felt safer, right? But if I think about convenience today, still a core benefit of who we are, you think about somebody essentially taking time out of their day to go to an in-person session. Maybe they're commuting 20, 30 minutes, they're having that session, commuting 20, 30 minutes back. Did they leave work or did they leave their family? That's a lot of time out of your day. Whereas with Talkspace, you pop open your laptop, your iPad, your phone, you could technically have a session at work, at home, finish that session, go back to doing what you were doing, and you're not losing a lot of time out of your day. If we talk about the fact that if you sign up for our services, you're matched with a therapist in a couple of days, which if you're an individual looking for in-person therapy, that quick match process is basically unheard of. You're probably using multiple sources to find somebody accepting clients. Maybe that is a week, a month long process, which again, from a timing perspective, for somebody that needs support, that's just not ideal.
Right.
And then again, with our services, if we happen to match you with a therapist and you're like, we're just not vibing, I don't think it's a good match, we match you with somebody, again, in a couple of days. Whereas if you're an individual looking for in-person therapy, you're back to ground zero. And so again, we talk again about the time to get the support you need, not ideal. And then again, I talked a little bit before about the insurance factor as a huge benefit to Talkspace. Now we're partnering with major insurance companies. The affordability is a huge, huge deal. So we're going to continue to consistently message that. And then obviously, we do all the vetting of our clinicians. And so we always want to highlight the quality of our clinical network. I would say, second to that, would be as a brand, we are really trying to sort of evolve the mental health conversation to not only be a conversation that is centered around crisis. I think a lot of people think about mental health and they're like, well, you have to have a mental health condition, whether that be PTSD, postpartum, anxiety, depression. But we know that therapy can be for whatever is really happening in your life, whether that be maybe there's just life transitions that you're having a really hard time navigating. Maybe you're graduating from college, about to join the workforce. That's really stressful. Maybe
Right.
you're having problems, just challenges parenting, and you want a therapist to help you navigate that. Or again, maybe you're moving states or switching jobs. Therapy can help with all of those things. And so I think as a brand, we are really trying to show what therapy can be used for. Again, yes, mental health conditions, but also for whatever is going on in your life. And so I think evolving that conversation along with consistently messaging our core benefits will keep Talkspace top of mind.
I love that. And, we come from the same school of thought. It really is obviously if someone is in crisis in a very acute situation, you want to make sure that they get the triage and the support that they need. However, we have spent a lot of our work really going upstream, talking about early intervention, prevention, resilience, a growth mindset. I definitely believe that, crisis comes in many forms and it's in the eye of the beholder. And so we really, with Man Therapy's mission was to reduce suicide among working age men. So that was the genesis of it. And we realized early on that if we waited until a guy was in crisis, we were too late. And so it was really about going upstream, helping men and their loved ones connect the dots into what might be going on in their life, and then, seeking help in whatever form that might take earlier on before it gets to be a crisis. But you've really talked about a lot of other things that it can help people, and not just dealing with a problem, but really trying to maximize their impact in their work and their friendships and relationships, both in the workplace and at home. I think that is just a really, really solid way to approach it.
And I think, if we could somehow sort of evolve the conversation for people to view therapy as just like them going to the gym, or just like ultimately being viewed as like mental maintenance. I think it would be great because based on what you just said, early intervention, just like having a therapist to just on speed dial, you view it as something that you want to do weekly. Again, like we all have a lot going on. One day work is an issue, another day parenting is a challenge, another day your relationship with your partner may be a challenge. So just having somebody that you're always sort of speaking to, that's an unbiased opinion that kind of has no skin in the game that can help you, I think is a really, really major positive thing to have.
Baxter, in your opinion, what's the best way for a brand to be authentic in this conversation around mental health?
I think I would first say that I love that brands want to be a part of the mental health conversation because it is an important one. No matter what product or service a brand is selling, you can probably, based on probability, that there's somebody in their customer base that is struggling with mental health. And that brand may be the first touch point to provide information or to provide resources or to provide tips to that person. I would always say when you're sort of new to the mental health space or wanting to be able to talk about it, a brand should always take a step back and figure out how to do that authentically. Let's just say you're a brand who's never mentioned mental health in any of your content, but you're like, it's such an important conversation. I want this to be a new content pillar for us. I would say sometimes it's great to partner with a brand that is does mental health well, or maybe you think about bringing on a mental health ambassador that is an sort of expert in the mental health space. So basically, leveraging the expertise of a brand or an ambassador to really move that conversation forward. And I think through that partnership, you would naturally start to gain credibility in this space. So on the long term, it would feel more natural for that brand to independently start to be a part of that conversation. Secondary, if the brand is like, you know what, I don't want to necessarily partner with somebody. I want to go it alone. I want it to be independent in the conversation. I think that's okay too. I would just say make sure wherever the brand is getting the information, the statistics, the tips, the facts, that it is a reputable mental health resource, so that when somebody's engaging with that content, they see a look at the citation and they go, oh, for an example, oh, this is from Mental Health America, so this is legit. And I think that would sort of give them legitimacy in the space on the short term.
In addition to being the brand champion, and obviously that's your role at Talkspace, and you do it very well. I can tell that this is more than a job to you. It seems like you have really bought into the mission. And when you think about over 1 million people that have benefited from Talkspace and participated in your sessions, the downstream positive residual impact of that is just immense. I just love when a brand who is built a really successful business also has a mission of doing some really great work in the world. And I can't think of a better example than Talkspace. It really is at that intersection of a smart, good, quality brand, but also, just providing an amazing service. So thank you so much for the work that you and your colleagues do, and I appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you for having me.